So we don't work on the Mustang for a week, and it runs and hides. We're gonna have to move all these cars so we can start working on it again. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's Ford Friday once again. We're back to working on our 1965 Mustang rebuild project. Now the last time we got the front end and firewall off of the car, we started removing our floor all the way to the rear seats, and we got the rear end out of the way so that we can keep going this time. So that's what we're gonna do. We're going to pull out the floor underneath the rear seats and in the trunk so that we can get our shell ready to go on our 2015 chassis. Let's get started. So we'll start with an all too familiar process in this project, removing the seam sealer. Scrape it all out of there to expose our welds and our seams. A little bit over the tunnel in the top. Parts that are rusty are nice. The rust kind of makes it peel off. It's about the only time I like rust. What have we here? Looks like we got our next build. I bought a Mustang and got a T-Bird. Still waiting for that build that's packed full of cash. So we'll drill all our 1/8" pilot holes and all of our spot welds. We need to save this piece, so we just need to get it off of the floor. And there's a bracket on the inside that also connects to the floor, so we have to get that off. That's why we're removing the spot welds in the middle. Now we're into the trunk. We're going to get this massive wiring harness out of here. That's one wire that runs to the gas tank for the sending unit. Just pop the clips off and slide it out. Now onto some more seam sealer. Now we can drill out of the spot welds across the bottom here. That angle attachment for the drill makes this pretty easy for these tight spots. It's available in my Amazon store if you want to check it out. Links in the description. So now we can unbolt the rear bumper. There's just 2 bolts on each side. Well, 1 nut. Pull the bumper off. Disconnect the license plate light. The grommet was so old it just deteriorated and the wire fell apart. Now back to drilling out our spot welds. We got our 5/16 drill bit now. There's a couple seam welds on the top of the tunnel, so we'll grind these off. Now we can start separating our welds. I don't like the angle splitters much, but they came in handy here. So now we'll get a piece of the floor out of the way so we have some room to work. In hindsight, probably should have taken that out first. Would have made it easier to get to the spot welds on the bottom. Oh well. Next time. Watch your toes. That was a close one. I wasn't wearing my steel-toed flip-flops. So now we can drill our 5/16 holes in the bottom. Since we drilled our pilot holes, we can see where all the welds are. The metal's thinner, so it's easier to drill it from the bottom. And I can put a little more pressure on it when I'm pushing up into the body instead of down with the little angle attachment. So now there's a couple seam welds on top of the rails in the back. So we'll grind those off and then split them. Yes, that's a hole the factory blew in there when he welded it together. Instead of welding it back up, they just covered it up with some seam sealer. This must have been before quality was job one at Ford. I will grind out that seam weld on the other side and split that piece off. Straighten it out. I'll get a slightly bigger hammer, see how many of these welds we can break loose. The ones that didn't break loose, we'll finish with our splitter. Now we have the torque boxes. We can drill all these out, detach them from our rail. Got some undercoating to clean off of here so we can see our welds. And drill out our spot welds. And now we can cut everything out with the Sawzall. Cut the driver's side out. It's nice not having high strength steel. The Sawzall blade cuts right through it. So we need to make a slice in there so we get the saw blade in there. You didn't think I could get through this whole project today without using my favorite tool. Now I can finish slicing this piece off. The pile. So now we can cut the floor on the sides of the rails. Now we'll cut the rails across the back out to the wheel houses. We're going to leave this last section of the rail in there, mainly because I need a place for the jack stands. Some of it we're going to end up using. I don't know how much. It will become the actual floor in the car again. So I'm just going to leave as much in there as I can, save time down the road. And we got our favorite tool. Just going to go along the wheelhouse, get the floor out. Got a little carried away with the air chisel. Got a couple holes I'm going to have to weld up in the wheelhouse. Or we could just slap some seam sealer on it like Ford did. And we'll go over to the driver's side. I can't get the saw in there because of those other cross pieces. And I want to leave those cross pieces in there because I will use them and I need some support. I might have to trim the bottom or even extend it depending on where my new floor fits. So if I can avoid taking them out, I will. So our floor should be ready to come out. Bounce on it a little bit. One spot weld left. There's always one. Man, today would have been a good day for those steel-toed flip-flops. So now our floor section is out. Now we can get rid of the remaining pieces. We're just going to air chisel off the spot welds and the seam welds. Much easier to work with this little part. So now we can grind off the rest of it. Flatten out our frame rails. I'll do the same thing on the passenger side. Grind out the welds first, because they apparently decided this side should stay together. So then we can pop the pieces off with the air chisel and hit them all with the grinder. Even the parts that we had taken out before, like our seat support and all along the rails. Now we have the piece of the floor that we just cut out of there the last time, because the welds were too rusted out to see where they were. So we'll knock them off and grind them flat. Do the same thing on the driver's side. Smooth everything out. Now it's time for some car Tetris. We're going to move our 2015 into place. And we have to unload it because it's been sitting around long enough that it became a storage rack. So we'll just move everything over to the next thing that's been sitting around. The skid steer. Pull the rear end out of there. And then move the skid steer. Probably should have thought that one through. So now we can work on the 2015 frame. Oh look, more seam sealer. Get all this out of the way so we can see our spot welds. I didn't grind out the spot welds. We had just trimmed this piece out to get our body off the last time. I can drill our pilot holes and our 5/16. And now we'll just cut this piece off. In case you're wondering why I cut that piece, it goes way down inside here. So I need this piece to support the suspension on the other side, so I want to leave all that in there. So now we're going to do the same thing on the passenger side. This takes forever. There must be a faster way. That's better. Dear Ford, if you want to increase performance and lower production costs, knock it off with all the seam sealer. Sincerely, the guy that has to take it all out. Okay, so now that my rant is over, we're back to drilling out the spot welds. We'll drill our pilot holes, then our 5/16 holes, and we'll cut our piece in half. Maybe it's not half. We'll just cut our piece off. Grind out a couple welds that we forgot. And twist it out of there. Now we got this cross brace that goes underneath the seat. This is high strength steel. This is not fun to cut. Went right through this grinding disc. So we'll cut the other side off. Not looking forward to taking this piece out, and I think I'm going to have to. Use a hammer to break some of the welds. Actually, one weld. I win. Now we can trim our wheelhouses. Get the excess out of the way. These are not high strength steel. They cut pretty easy. Now onto the driver's side. There's a little bit more to cut on this side because it has that indent for the filler neck. It's all smashed. I don't feel bad about cutting this one. Now we'll cut the front half of it. That'll trim the outside edge. So the piece that we left is the shape of the piece on the outside. And that's about the bare minimum. We may get to trim some of it later, or just remove what's left over. But that's for down the road. Now we're going to cut the part of the floor that goes down where the gas tank used to be, off of our frame rail. We'll leave the frame rail in there. We'll just get rid of as much as possible, since we're not going to need this. So now it's time for some answers to your comment questions. First, you guys asked me what it's going to look like. Well, we're building a 65 Mustang, so it's going to look like a 65 Mustang-ish. Now another one you had was a big one. What am I doing? Well, I explained it in the video up there if you missed it, and if you did see it and still don't understand, me explaining it again probably isn't going to help. So, I think I'll show you. It's show and tell time. So maybe having everything lined up like this gives you a better idea what I'm doing. We cut the body off the 2015 and threw it away. We have our floor and our frame rails and our front end all in one piece. Then we took and cut off the front end, the floor, and the frame rails from our 1965 body. What we're left with is two pieces to a puzzle. We're going to put that on that. Simple, right? Yeah, there's going to be a lot of trimming. Stuff's not going to line up perfectly, but that's part of the build. So, that's what I'm doing. Still don't get it? Alright, let's try something else. Alright, so we need to move our mobile frame rack into place. Guess it's a lift today. Found another use for the brackets we made. They're now lifting points. I'll test out my welds. Hook the chains together. Probably not the safest lifting method, but if you're watching this channel for safety, you're in the wrong place. So now we're going to put some bolts and chains through our bumper holes. This is why we took the rear bumper off. I did end up moving the chain on the driver's side to the outside hole because it was higher. Gave me a little more room. Now we can route the chains through our engine leveler, because when we're doing things wrong, let's just use the wrong tools to do it. It's now been repurposed as a body leveler. Tool names are arbitrary in my garage. And we're going to use our engine hoist as a body hoist. So we'll put our body lift into place, hook it up to our leveler. This works how I have it in my mind. Pretty smart idea. Probably not going to work. So I wasn't lifting straight. Level it out. Look at that, it worked. Just like I planned. So now we can lift the front end. Pull our jack stands out of the way. No, these are not from Harbor Freight. I would never use those. I'm into safety, can't you tell? So we'll roll our 2015 chassis back underneath the car. Go up little by little, front and back. Now we can lower the body down. Pull the car back a little bit. Lower it down a little bit in the front. I cut the cowl on a 2015 Mustang exactly the width of the 65. That was a complete accident. I had not planned on this. So we're just going to keep letting it down, a little bit on each end. The front needs to go down first, kind of needs to go forward and down, until we run into a snag. Well, it could be a snag, or it could be a feature. It could be the first lifted Mustang. I'll have to get those body lift kits into my Amazon store as soon as I can. And when our Flex Tape sponsorship comes through, we can get this thing all back together. So in order for our body to drop down, it needs to go forward a little bit. We need it to go forward enough to put this tire in the center of this wheel well. But we can't quite go forward because we have some trimming to do on our A-pillars. Either take a little bit out of here or take a little bit out of here. Or a little bit of both, which is probably what we're going to do. Our actual A-pillar is back here. This is just a filler because the dash was tucked further underneath on the 65 than it was on the 15. So we'll probably be able to get rid of a lot of this, but not the frame rails. I do want to keep those. They're going to end up down there replacing our 2015 frame rails. So it's going to be trimming a little bit and fitting. It's going to take some time, but once this is in place, the hard part's done. We're going to end up taking some of this cowl off to raise it up so that everything fits. I have to keep the outside 1965, but anything underneath what you see on the surface, I can do whatever I want with. So because we left our 1965 its original width, and we left our 2015 suspension its original width, we have a difference to make up. A difference of 3 inches. So there's a couple different ways we can do that. We can get a wheel and tire set up and some suspension to tuck the wheels further in under our 65 body. Or we can bring our 65 body out to match our 2015 suspension. And we can do that with a wide body kit. That'll give it a little bit more of an aggressive look, and with the wider track, it'll keep the car more stable. So that's the method I'm going with. So we're gonna have a 65 with the wide body kit. Some of the other updates to the body, gonna put a spoiler on the back, possibly a roll bar, and a different hood, of course. We're gonna use the 2015 wheels and tires, but everything else is gonna be the same. So now that you know what the body's gonna look like, yes, I am gonna paint it a different color. I don't know what yet, I'm gonna let you guys decide. I will give you guys some boundaries, because if I don't, and let you pick from whatever you want, I'm gonna end up with a purple car with pink polka dots. That's not gonna happen, so I'll give you some color choices, and you guys can pick from that. So everyone's been asking me what I'm gonna name the Mustang. Well, I can tell you what I'm not gonna name it. Yeah, the E word. Because the people that own the E word, they're not real nice. I was thinking Frankenstein, because it's gonna be a hacked up monster, that's for sure. And I actually had a couple recommendations for that name after I came up with it. So, it must be a good name. It seems fitting. What do you guys think? So that's it for this video. Hopefully you guys are on the same page now, and you know what's coming next. Getting the body to fit all the way down onto our frame. I get it, it's not really a frame, but you know what I mean. So like this video if you found it interesting, share it if you think somebody else might. Subscribe to see the rest of this build, or whatever else I'm working on. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. A moment of silence for the gloves lost in this build. I get trains at the shop, I get fire trucks here. It's like they know. I can't win. Oh look, sounds like more just joined the party. I give up. Does this count as a first drive? I mean, it is a Ford. Pushing counts, right? Clean freaks, rejoice.